Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Today is the deadline, and literally minutes ago, the window for teams to cut their rosters to 53 has closed. The deadline has come, 3 o'clock Central. And there are some notable names, as there are every year, with respect to the Saints cut down. So let me not bury the lead. Wil Lutz has been traded to the Denver Broncos. Linebacker Jalen Smith was cut. More on that in a second because I think he's going to be back. Bradley Roby was also cut. Let me quickly, if I could, just run through the other names. I'm going to do this quickly and not spend a ton of time on all of them because I think by and large we understand what this is. But one other thing that's always important to make mention of is this is always the first 53. As we always say, it's not your final 53. It's the first 53 because you're going to see guys that were cut today, signed tomorrow. I think Jalen Smith is one of them. You're going to see guys that made the team today cut tomorrow because you have about 1,000 plus free agents all hitting the market at once, and somebody that was cut somewhere is going to be a player that the Saints want to keep. So first 53. Really quick, I'll just run through the names. Jalen Smith, Nico Lalos, who had a great preseason and might be a practice squad candidate. Nick Anderson, the former Tulane linebacker. These are all players that have been cut or waived. Jesse James, the tight end. Jack Heflin, the defensive tackle who had played in the XFL. Offensive tackle Mark Evans, offensive guard Chuck Fialiaga. Jonathan Abram, that could be another practice squad candidate. Adrian Fry, Bradley Roby. Alex Filstrom, Smoke Monday. Running back Ellis Merriweather cut. Keep an eye on that one to see if he might be back. Quan Baker, former 7th-round pick. We knew Brian Edwards was already cut as well. So those are the names that we knew, along with Scott Lashley, James Washington, as far as Coda Martin. Some of the guys that we knew had already been cut. 3 players, though, that I want to focus on here, the 3 biggest names on that list that we know right now, and they're probably still going to, as the deadline literally passed 5 minutes ago, there's still going to be names that haven't yet trickled out that we'll hear as we move through the day. But first and foremost, Wil Lutz being traded is probably the biggest news here. Earlier this week, Peter King reported that there was interest from Sean Payton potentially in trading for Wil Lutz. Now, we've talked about this before. Sean Payton and Peter King have a really good relationship. If you hear something from Peter King with relation to something involving Sean Payton, chances are he got it directly from Sean Payton. So that I don't think is a great surprise. That there was interest. The fact that the Saints went ahead and traded Wil Lutz to Denver is of great interest. They got a 2024 7th-round pick from Denver for Wil Lutz. Wil Lutz tweeted his appreciation to the New Orleans Saints, to the Saints fans, the Who Dat Nation for the last 7 years. In fact, the tweet from Wil Lutz read, New Orleans, thank you for the best 7 years of my life. Being able to rock the black and gold has been an absolute honor. We started a family here, made lifelong friends, made memories we'll never forget. This city will always be a special place to us. Proud of everything we accomplished in our 7 years together. Pro Bowl, 4-division champs, and leaving with the second most points in team history. New Orleans, I'll always be a part of the Who Dat Nation. Excited for the next chapter of our lives. Broncos country, let's ride. So congrats to Wil Lutz on a really good career in New Orleans these past 7 years, and best of luck to what is next. The thing that's worth noting here, Blake Grupe was fantastic in training camp, and it's a line that we've used many times, but it's a Sean Payton, Mickey Loomis line that's of the Bill Parcells lineage. They would rather get rid of a player a year too early than a year too late. The Saints do save about $1.7 million against the cap with Wil Lutz being a post-June 1 trade, but the Saints have nearly $12 million in cap space. That's largely inconsequential, but it's noteworthy. Wil Lutz made a Pro Bowl in 2019. And then the COVID year in 2020. In 2021, he was injured, missed the whole season. Came back last year, and Wil Lutz was literally the worst kicker in the league. Wil Lutz made 74% of his field goals. In the NFL, that is, in high school football, if a kid makes 74%, it's like, hey, keep trying, Johnny. That's not bad. In college, if the kid makes 74% of his field goals, it's like, got anybody else down there warming up? Any walk-ons ready to go? In the NFL, you make 74% of your kicks, you're fired. So he was 37th in the league, 23 of 31. He was 37th among kickers. The only kickers who had a lower percentage were kickers that weren't full-time kickers. So he was bad. There's no other way to say it. Wil Lutz was bad. He was a bad kicker last year. So you bring in a young guy, and it looked like he was ready to roll. So you move on with Blake Grupe, and you got something for Wil Lutz. Okay, I'm with it. Wil Lutz had a good run here. The Saints feel like they got a younger guy with a strong enough leg who showed some moxie in this preseason, and they move on from a guy who had an awful year last year. Okay, I'm fine with it. Jalen Smith is going to be interesting to a lot of people, obviously, but it's worth reminding you how sometimes this goes. And Jalen Smith, even after he was cut, or news broke that he was cut, Jalen Smith tweeted, this I'm sure was confusing to a lot of people because he's cut, and then Jalen Smith tweeted, "Thanks be to God," at 11:25 a.m. with prayer hands. I'm certain this went like this. Hey, Jaylon, listen, you're going to make the team. We have to cut you today, but don't go anywhere. We're going to re-sign you tomorrow. And a lot of times the way this goes down is guys will make the 53 and then be placed on IR, which ends their season and frees up a roster spot. So maybe that's Tre'Quan Smith, who hasn't participated in camp this year because he's been injured. Maybe the Saints keep Tre'Quan Smith on the 53, immediately put him on IR, and then re-sign Jalen Smith tomorrow. Jalen Smith made this team. He was magnificent during the preseason. He was consistently, with Pro Football Focus, one of the highest-graded players defensively for the New Orleans Saints. Yes, he fits. He's exactly what they need. He is their number 3 linebacker. This isn't even a question, especially after Andrew Dowell's injury. Jalen Smith is... I would be fall over stunned if Jalen Smith wasn't back on the Saints tomorrow, but that's sometimes how these things are processed. So expect Jalen Smith to be back in New Orleans on this team tomorrow. Again, first 53. And then the other is Bradley Roby. Bradley Roby came to New Orleans, from the Houston Texans and really fit what the Saints were doing very well. And where you had Marshawn Lattimore and you had Paulson Adebo, but you drafted Alontae Taylor, Bradley Roby is a guy who was a great nickel back for the Saints, but he tweeted, "Cutting costs at all costs might just cost you in the end." But he said, this is Bradley Roby's tweet. He said, "Cutting costs at all costs might just cost you in the end." And then he tweeted, "Good luck to my brothers and the Saints fans. Y'all deserve to be winners. #whodat." So classy way on the way out for Bradley Roby. I don't know that I'm fully on board with him saying this is a cost-cutting move. The Saints' salary cap situation right now is perfectly fine. As it stands today and before everything's been updated, the Saints have $11.7 million in cap space. So I don't know that Bradley Roby, is the kind of contract that, I'm looking at Bradley Roby right here. He restructured his deal, and his dead cap hit next year is $1.76 million. It's largely inconsequential. So I think ultimately what we see here is the Saints making a decision to move on and stick with their draft pick. Alontae Taylor was a second-round pick a year ago coming out of Tennessee. They really like him a lot. You've got Lattimore on one side, Adebo on the other, and Alontae is your slot corner, your nickel. So if you're going with the younger guy, I can kind of understand that. You're leaning on your draft collateral. And Bradley Roby, when he came out of Ohio State, was he was a first-round pick when he came out of Ohio State and was with the Broncos and the Texans, and ultimately the Saints traded for him, and he played well in New Orleans, played that role well. But the Saints are getting younger, and you could hardly blame them for that because Alontae Taylor looked really good. So those are the 3 big names as of right now. Again, Wil Lutz being traded. Congrats to Blake Grupe, who makes the team. Jalen Smith was cut, but fully expect him to be back. And Bradley Roby being cut is a is just an attaboy, a hat tip, hey, we're leaning on the young guy in Alontae Taylor, and the Saints will move forward. But the thing I'll tell you about that, a year ago, Paulson Adebo with the knee injury missed 4 games. A year ago, Marshawn Lattimore with the weird abdominal injury that he had missed 10 games. So you're an injury away from leaning on Ugo Amadi, in that slot role. But there's always tough decisions every year. So we'll wait and see how this all plays out with Saints. They'll be able to sign some of these guys back to the practice squad. No doubt they have their list that they're interested in. We just found out Shaq Davis is another one of the guys that was waived. So if he clears waivers, no doubt that's a guy the Saints are going to want to have back as well. So this will evolve as we move forward, but that's where it stands as of right now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.